icon, right? And not the star six. When you call in, it's star six, right? But if you have your video up. I think Daniel's trying to unmute himself. Sure, she's here.
Okay, we're ready to go, Mayor, whenever you wanted to start.
Linda Miller is the chair from last year, so she would convene us.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you.
So I'm calling this meeting to order. Or this meeting to order.
I'm going to do a roll call and let me know if you're here. So if we could unmute, please. Linda Miller.
Present.
Darcy Long Curtis.
Present.
Tim McLaughlin. I saw him. Tim McLaughlin, you're muted. There you go, Tim.
Yeah, I'm in now. Okay, yes, I'm here. I was on the iPad. Had difficulties getting logged in.
Okay.
I'm
Rod
here.
Runyon. Rod Runyon.
Yeah, can you hear me?
There we go. Dan Richardson.
Present.
Tanner Elliott.
Present.
Beatrice Olivan. Oop, let me unmute you. Ooh, I can't. Oh, there you go. Beatrice.
I'm here.
Okay, Beatrice, you're maybe too loud. Can you turn it down? Okay. I think that's all I'm supposed to do. Next.
Thank you. Linda, do you have the agenda page in front of you?
I do.
The next item would be to elect a chair and secretary.
Okay. Any nominees for the chair of the budget committee?
Linda, this is Rod. I nominate Linda Miller to be the chair.
I can't be
Why not?
because I won't be here next year.
Only for this year.
Oh, it's for this year. It's for this year, right?
We're not losing you yet.
I'll
Okay,
second.
all right. Thank you, Tanner.
You can ask for other nominations, but that's one.
Okay, Linda Miller's been nominated and seconded. Are there any other nominations? If not, I'll take a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
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 All those against, nay.
Declined.
Decline. Okay, so now we'll have nominations for the secretary of the budget committee. Do I have any nominations?
You know, I didn't see any minutes. Who was secretary last year?
Delay. Soleil was the secretary last year.
Yes, I was.
Any nominations?
I'm happy to just self-nominate if that's acceptable. This is Soleil Kabakov.
Do I have any second?
I'll
actually
second
not.
that. I'll second
Okay, I
that.
have, Soleil has been nominated and it's been seconded. Any other nominations?
That second was
Okay,
by
if,
Tim.
the second was by what?
By Tim.
Okay. Okay, so if there's no other nominations, I'll take a vote. All those in favor of Soleil being secretary, say aye.
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 Any negative? Okay, Soleil, you are the secretary for the budget committee for 2021. Okay, next on the agenda is the budget officer's message for the year 2021.
Thank you, Chair. This will be a brief budget message this year, but I always like to start off by saying a huge thank you to our Finance Director, Angie Wilson, for her work in preparing the budget and her continued work as we realized some revenue shortfalls this year, and she has had to rebalance during this COVID pandemic, and I think we are on our third version now, so it's been a real challenge this year. I really appreciate your work, Angie. Regarding the city's fiscal policies, with the staff proposed changes that you all received, we remain in compliance with those policies, maintaining our unappropriated ending fund balance that'll give us 4 months of operating expenses, and it maintains our 10% contingency policy. We did receive some questions from one budget committee, Dan Richardson. Those were replied to and sent to the committee for your review. We did not receive any other questions from anyone on the budget committee. I'm going to, in just a moment, I'll ask Angie to provide you with an overview of our staff proposed changes that we sent out to you today. It's our final version. And then as we go through the agenda tonight and we finish the motion to certify the tax rate, the 2 public hearings and approval of the minutes, I am going to ask that you approve our recommended changes tonight and forego the departmental presentations this year. We all understand and expect that there are going to be changes as we move through this coming fiscal year. This is our very best effort at getting ourselves balanced, and then we'll just take a wait and see approach to any additional changes as new information comes along throughout the year. So I think with that, I will ask Angie to give you a brief overview of the staff proposed changes, and then if you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer those for you.
So today I sent out a new updated change sheet, and I'll start with the general fund. So I believe that our beginning fund balance is probably going to come in about $361,498, less than what anticipated, just due to the COVID for the transient room tax. So there'll probably be about 2 quarters of transient room tax that will be much lower than what was anticipated. Also, the marijuana tax, I actually, because when I'm preparing for the budget, we've usually received only about the first 2 quarters of the marijuana tax and other tax revenues. And I anticipate that our marijuana tax is going to actually come in higher than what was originally anticipated, about $37,782. And to date, court fines and forfeitures will come in about $20,000 higher from when I originally budgeted. So that will give us a change in the general fund revenues. Originally it was $13,564,669. I'm anticipating $12,926,953, which is a $637,000 difference. So in that $637,000 difference, we went through the budget, the general fund budget, to look for ways that we could save and balance the budget. And the first item was we went to the department from the city council, and we are suggesting to reduce the Youth Inc. $5,000, giving them a total of $10,000. Reduce the Link, giving them a total of $20,000. Reduce beautification $10,000, giving it a total of $20,000. Reduce the cruise ships $20,000, giving a total of $20,000. Reduce fireworks $20,000, giving a total of $20,000. Also in the city council budget, we added a new line item called economic recovery. That is an expense line item, and we put $510,000 in there. And this is for, the new line item is to help the community for emergency services due to the COVID. And so we're asking to budget $510,000 in that line item. We're also on the travel, food, and lodging under the city council, we're asking to reduce that $6,600 and reducing the DC trips by $5,000 and eliminate the sister city. Then we get to the city clerk, and we originally budgeted to do a part-time position, which was going to be split between urban renewal, city clerk, and planning. And we've taken that, eliminated that part-time position out. So that's hitting the personnel services and adjusting the city clerk down to down 2,253. Also, city clerk has offered to take out her travel, food, and lodging and her trainings and conferences, where originally she had about 5,500 total in that department area, and that's reducing that down to 0. The city manager is also reducing her travel, food, and lodging and reducing it down to 2,400, which is taking out 1,500. And the city manager or the finance department is also reducing the budget down, eliminating $4,700 out of the travel, food, and lodging and the training and conferences. And also removing all the training and travel and training out of the human resource department, or the, out of the utility department. And then reducing the travel and trainings out of the human resource department by 4,535. The planning department, we removed the other part-time temp, the third split, and it also removes the third split from urban renewal. And then contractual services for the planning department, the housing strategy report implementation removed, being that it's a grant, so there was no match needed in there. The planning director also reduced his travel and trainings and reduced those by a total of 2,000. Reduced membership dues and subscriptions by 1,500, and removed his assets for 8,100. This was for the planning office expansion, so he's just going to do it at a cheaper cost. And then the economic development, the business attraction strategy of 20,000, and also remove the airport business park marketing for 15,000 was removed. The police department had budgeted and had a request in one of the bids for the new hire position of a police officer. That has been removed, giving a savings of 102,468. And then they've also adjusted their ammunition and reducing their firearm range $4,455. And then they've also have adjusted their budget on their travel, food, and lodging, reducing it 18,000, but they would actually like to bring that up to the travel, food, and lodging up to 10,500 and reduce the CERT training 6,000. So it's still the same amount of savings, but it's just reducing in different areas. They've also reduced their vehicles since one of the new position for the police officer was removed. We also removed one of the police vehicles. That was savings of 45,800. The technology department, we reduced the contract with Superior Court System for the view history of the old data, and that was a savings of 5,000. The tourism has also been adjusted down, and this is adjusted down about $150,000. So it went from 330 down to 180, and giving us an adjustment on our contingency was reduced 36,355. The reason for this is we only need to maintain 10% of our actual expenditures, so that was able to be reduced. We also reduced the reserve for future expenditures, which was 1 million, which is leaving us still with $1,697,360. And then we have our unappropriated ending fund balance, which is $1,017,815. And this gives us a balanced budget in the general fund. Is there any questions regarding the general fund, why I'm on that still? Okay, then I'll go ahead and move over to the street fund. And the beginning fund balance is being adjusted and increased because of putting the chip seal project off and the ADA project off on hold until the budget year of 2021. And then the expenditures for the capital projects increased because then those projects will be done in 2021. And that leaves the street with a balanced budget. And then the water capital reserve fund, Dave is requesting to do the same thing here, increase the beginning fund balance due to placing the project of the Cirrhosis Reservoir roof on hold, which is $200,000. He's budgeted that for the capital projects of $200,000, which gives us our budget to balance. And those were the proposed changes for the 2021 budget year. I know that was a lot, and I don't know if I talked too fast for anybody, but if anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask those.
Does anyone have any other questions on the budget before we move on?
Rod, if you're talking, I can't hear you.
Rich is waving his hand.
You need to unmute yourself, or I will try as I see you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Rich, you were muted.
Am I muted?
You're not now.
Okay. The economic recovery funds, we're putting it out there, and I assume the mayor had a request to do that. But at this point, I'm assuming it'll be future council meetings where we will actually make rules as to how that would happen and why it would happen and the amounts and that sort of thing.
Yes, that is correct, Councilor Runyon. We're working on a plan right now, basing it off some other communities that have already put their plans in place. So when we get our criteria developed, then we'll be ready to bring it to the council for the policy. And Mayor Mays has agreed to serve on my committee as we develop that criteria.
And how difficult it is if we, let's say we determine that we don't do anything with those funds in that area, which I can't imagine right now.
Can't
But
imagine that
if we
myself.
did not, how difficult it is to, the money is in the general fund as a line item, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. That, if we didn't move it out of the future expenditures, it would be more difficult to make it available for distribution. So that's why I asked that we place it in a separate line item.
Okay, but it'd be no big deal to move it back into general fund and other departments if that's where we are 6 or 8 months from now.
Yes, that is true.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
This is Dan. Can I ask, where did the figure $510,000 come from?
At the time, we were balancing the budget and we were just coming off of, we reduced our expenses and we took our our unappropriated ending fund balance and our contingency, and that's what we had left. I think the 10,000 was just kind of that leftover piece of amount of it, not that it was like 500,000 or 510. It was just, that's what the number came up to.
Thank you.
This is Darcy. I have a question.
Yes, Darcy.
So I noticed that we combined for the Forktail Sports, we combined the fireworks and the murals into one item instead of keeping it separate like we have in the past. What was the reasoning for that?
That was at the request of Forktail's displays. They thought it would be simpler to manage it that way. In my most recent conversation with the chair of that group, with me cutting it in half, their plan this year would be to use the 20,000 for the fireworks display, and they would not use anything for the murals next year.
Okay, so are we lumping everything, including the general fund? Like if we have comments about things, are we supposed to say it now, or are we going to go through line items for general fund as well?
No, I have asked that we don't do that this year in order for us to get through this. And
okay, so I was just clarifying because I thought maybe you were only talking about department budgets because we often get bogged down in that. So I am very much not comfortable spending all that money on fireworks. I don't think it's a good investment. And I also, just in general, I am not in favor of lumping something together like that. The history of this organization was that they were supposed to work on the murals the first year and they didn't do that. The second year, it's been messy. And I think we need accountability. I think our citizens want accountability. And so we have to have a way to track that and not just say they can do whatever they want with that, because the murals were a priority for us. We moved it away to them because the purpose was they were going to fix the murals, and we're still waiting on that.
I do know, I guess my only response to that, Councilor Curtis, would be that I do know that in the current year, they spent quite a bit of money on the analysis that was done to get the condition of all the murals. And they also contributed a large chunk of money to the Altogether the Dalles mural project that's going on right now. But I don't think they have any plans for next year because I reduced their budget.
This is Rod. I agree with Darcy on that for accountability and whatnot. I think she's on the right track. I don't know if there's a way to handle that, Julie, through your office, but yeah, there've been some shortcomings in the past, and just putting it out there as one mixed item with, an open checkbook, we do need some accountability there.
Thank you.
My opinion. I have another one. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay, this is Rod. I saw we removed the police officer, and how many police officers do we have now currently? Anybody know offhand?
You approved one in this current fiscal year, so I believe we're at 24. Angie's gonna look that up really quickly. I think we're at 24.
24 sworn.
Oh, hi.
Okay. I don't know.
That was Jamie Carrico, our police captain.
Okay, so seems like we have a lot of money put into economic development. I'm just curious, what was the reason to back off on the additional police officer? I'm sure it had been well thought out and researched that we needed another one. So I'm just curious how that came about to take it off.
Well, we actually plan only to defer that for a year and just putting it on hold so we can address the community needs this year, which we know are going to be economic recovery.
Okay. The other one I didn't hear, and maybe Angie went through it. There was something about a patrol person for the watershed, part-time. Is that still on the books? I read that in one of these emails somewhere.
Control person.
Getting
The
blank
watershed
emails.
patrol. Dave, are you on the line?
I am on the line. Can you hear me okay?
I
Yes.
hear you. Yeah.
Do you want to respond to your
That
watershed?
is actually not budgeted. Yes, that is not budgeted in the general fund. That's budgeted in the water fund. And that would be under the water treatment, and it would be a part-time seasonal position.
Okay.
Same as always.
That's still on the books. Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Are there any other questions?
This is Rich.
Hi, Rich. Isaiah, he's muted.
I'm trying, there,
There we go.
go Rich.
Okay, you and I had a discussion last week about additional personnel, and maybe you could review for everyone the personnel that we were thinking about hiring for the next budget year, and which is left in and which has been taken out.
Certainly. I think Angie covered that in her review pretty well. What we've cut for personnel or deferred for this year is the one full-time police officer position and the part-time temporary position that we were planning to use for records management to get all of our records put into the state system.
What about the economic development position and the assistant?
The economic development position that we advertised for in the planning department is going to also be restructured, and those duties will be assigned to current staff this year. So we won't be filling that position this year.
And the assistant public works?
We have hired our assistant public works director, and he's been working for us for several months now. We just haven't been able to introduce him to you because of the COVID. Okay, if there are no more questions, I'll turn that back over to Chair Miller.
Julie? Sorry, this is Dan.
Hi.
Hi there. I was just waiting politely as I could to, I don't know the appropriate way to get about this. And I want to say, first of all, I appreciate the work that you guys put into this budget and into carrying on generally during what are, very challenging times. So thank you very much for that. I would like to bring back the discussion to the new police hire. I feel that economic recovery is obviously going to be vital, but there are several things that are vital. And I think given the call volume that's discussed in the BIP and the number of homeless contacts and other contacts, and increasingly difficult or even violent contacts, I feel that we need to, if we could, move forward with the police hire.
Thank you. Jamie, are you still there, and is Chief Ashmore on the meeting?
This is Jamie. I'm still here, and I don't see the chief on here. And I just sent him a text, and he didn't respond to me yet.
I know we talked about it, and I don't know if you and Chief Ashmore also had that conversation that we were comfortable deferring that for a year. Is that still the case, or do you want to respond to Budget Committee member Dan's?
Well, the department's position is, you know, we want to partner and do what we can to make sure we all get through this. And as much as we do need that extra position, based on a lot of the stuff Dan just commented on, and that's in the BIP. Of course, it would be nice and it's needed, but we're willing to do our part to defer for the time being.
Thank you. Soleil?
Yeah, I want to ask, so just regarding the fireworks and the murals, again, right before we leave this topic, with the governor's state of emergency through July 6th, I know that's not the shelter in place, but is there confidence in doing the fireworks this year because it attracts crowds? Do we have confidence in it being able to be held?
The committee does have confidence in that. They're, as far as I know, planning on just having it for the local community. They won't be doing like a big tourism, hey, everyone come to the Dalles. And as far as I know, there are no other celebrations attached to it. I know at one time the Chamber of Commerce was planning to attach the Cherry Festival to the 4th of July and have a combined event, and they have since canceled that.
So like in past years, do we give a certain amount for murals and a certain amount for fireworks? Does it correlate at all? Like, is it 50-50? Like, is there a way we can say the 20,000 goes part to this and part to that to define it?
We have done that in the past years. And like last year, it was $15,000 for murals and 20, I believe, for fireworks. I might be off a little bit on that, but more for the fireworks than was for the murals in the current year. So what's left on the table right now is $20,000, and they have expressed that they would want to use all of that for the fireworks. So I would need direction from this group and then from the council when it comes to adopting the budget as far as what you'd like me to report back to them.
You want that in the form of a motion?
We can do that, or if you'd like, we can go through we should probably continue on with the hearing before we start going to motions on changes to the budget, if you're all comfortable with that.
I guess my only concern is that since we're not going through it line by line like we typically do, and I'm a very visual person, I'm going to have a hard time going all the way through it and then remembering what motions I want to make at the end.
Okay. I really do believe, and Diana, our attorney, is here. She might say I'm not correct, but I believe that we should not make any motions on changes to the budget until we've had the hearing, just to make sure there's no additional testimony. Is that correct? That's correct. Okay. I have a list, Darcy, of what you said, if that will help you.
I'm sorry, what was that?
I said I have lists of what everyone's commented so far, so I will help you remember that motion.
I guess it'll suffice for now.
Chair Miller, would you like to go ahead and move to the next piece of the agenda?
Thank you. Okay, I need a motion to certify City of the Dalles tax rate of 3.0155 per thousand of assessed value. I need a motion.
This is Rod. I'll make the motion to certify the Dalles tax rate of $3.0155 per thousand of assessed value.
This is Tim
May I have a
McLaughlin.
motion? Do I have a,
Yes, this is Tim McLaughlin. I'll second the motion.
okay, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? If there's no discussion, I'll take the vote. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any nays? I have none, so this passes. Okay, next on the agenda is public hearings. The first one, public hearing to receive testimony regarding the proposed budget.
Testimony, please.
Okay, so we have no public testimony.
I have one testimony. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to find it really quickly here.
Okay,
Yes, I found it. I'm sorry. Apologize for that. With the new guidelines from the state of Oregon regarding public meetings law, we are able to require that all testimony be provided in writing, and there was a specific date. And we received one testimony from Richard Wolf, and his testimony, I believe that this was forwarded to you, but it's regarding the downtown trees, and he says, please budget removal of the metal grates at the base of our downtown sidewalk trees. The grates reach a temperature of 145 degrees when the direct summer sun reaches an ambient temperature of 80 degrees. This imposed grate heat is laying directly on the trunk base root system, which necessitates more watering, stunting growth, and kills trees. Please see the trees on your block without metal grates. This will not take a landscape architect or engineer. The trees should be established as other trees by now and not need $10,000 worth of watering. And that was the only testimony that we received.
okay. So no further public testimony regarding the proposed budget. Then we go to public hearing to receive testimony regarding uses of state revenue sharing.
We did not receive any testimony regarding state revenue sharing.
Okay. Need a motion to recommend proposed uses of state shared revenue to City Council.
Say what we normally put that in the general fund. Our finance director, do you want me to just say that? Yeah. Okay. The state shared revenues, we have traditionally, well, always since I've worked here, that has become general fund revenue, and we've never had anyone move that into any other line item. So the proposed budget does have our state shared revenue in the general fund.
Okay, do I have a motion?
This is Rod. I'll make the motion to recommend that the state shared revenue funds received by the City of the Dalles go into the general fund.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Are there any nays? Okay, seeing none or hearing none, that passes. Next on the agenda is to set a future meeting. Are we going to have one this year?
I don't think we'll need one. If you'd like, we could move that to the end of the agenda if needed.
Oh, okay. Okay. Next on the agenda is the approval of minutes. Oh, that we don't have the minutes yet.
Correct. No minutes.
Okay.
So then that would take, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So then we'd go down to approval of the budget.
Yes, and that is where Councilor Long Curtis wanted to make a motion, I believe.
I do, but before I do that, I just want to ask the rest of the budget committee to have a little discussion about, now that they understand exactly how we're going through this process, if everyone is comfortable that we are giving this budget the thought and care that it deserves.
Anyone else have a comment?
Yeah, this is Soleil. I understand not having like department heads speak to each department, but I did anticipate being able to go through a little more thoroughly like we normally have. And of course I had the book in advance. Thank you, Angie, for dropping that off. So I did review it on my own, but I do feel like we're rushed through this a bit, and I would like to be able to take time to go a little deeper in detail as a group, personally.
Second that, or ditto from me.
Who's you?
That was
Who did the ditto?
Dan.
Okay.
I agree that I would like a little bit more time to go through this and speak to department heads, or at least to have a little bit slower pace to review our budget.
Cantor?
I'm actually comfortable with it. I think in the midst of what we have, there's going to be a lot of changes that the council is going to have to address down the road. So at this point, you know, that may change going through the meeting, but if I feel differently, I'll speak up.
Rod?
I'm kind of with Tanner on this. I appreciate Darcy's thoughts about being a little more definitive on the money going to Forktail's displays. But overall, this committee just sends it to the city council. And I think we're going to have a lot of questions ourselves that are going to develop as we near those dates where we take a look at it as a city council. And we will also be getting additional questions from the public. And those will be brought up at those city council meetings as well.
So this is Darcy, and I just want to comment on that. In the past, we have actually pretty much rubber stamped whatever came from the budget committee. And so if I was assured that we were going to take more time and take more comment and go through it as a city council, I'd feel more comfortable about that. But if we're just going to take whatever the budget committee sends forward without any major discussion, I'm not comfortable with that.
Jim?
I'm right here. I have some unanswered questions through this process, that especially about the homeless issue, and with the closure of the St. Vincent's warming place next year, how are we going to respond and address that? Will the Economic Recovery Fund be a source of funding, or what do we do in that instance? Those are some of the questions I have.
Okay, who else is on the budget committee?
Beatrice.
Beatrice, your comment, please.
She's muted.
I can't unmute her. She's muted herself.
Okay.
Beatrice, can you hear us? You're mute. There
I
you are.
can hear you.
Here she comes.
Okay.
She's muted herself again. Counselor McLaughlin, I can speak to briefly about the homeless issue. There are not specific funds in this proposed budget for that. I have put together a work group and we're going to start talking about that soon, but we do not have specific dollars in the budget earmarked for homelessness.
I was just bringing it up because it's a concern of mine that we address that, at least in the future, have some recourse for that operation. Things may change before next winter as well, so, but I wanted to address it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Chair's opinion is that we are in not normal circumstances. And I know that the finance department and staff have done their due diligence the best that they could considering the circumstances. And I don't know if going through another meeting in this format is going to give us anything different. That's my opinion.
If the budget committee members have additional questions that they haven't asked, it sounded like maybe Soleil and Dan had some questions that they hadn't had an opportunity to ask yet. We'd certainly love to hear those, and maybe that would open up a discussion on those points.
This is Soleil. I think for me, the challenge is, because I did read through the book on my own, that it's through kind of going piece by piece and through the discussion of the group that actually I come up with different questions and I glean more of details behind the line items. So I don't know that I have specific questions, maybe except, does it require another meeting, or can we just take a little bit of time now to go through some sections and feel like we have a little bit deeper dive in the moment here?
Are there specific sections you were hoping to go through?
I don't know necessarily like the main department. Like one broad question I have is the changes that were proposed. Were they driven, like department driven? I know, like you mentioned, speaking with the police department, and I'm curious though if they came from like city manager, finance down, or if departments were tasked with where can you cut, and that was actually their suggestion. You know, that's kind of a broad question. I am curious though how that process looked.
Actually, I think I would say it would be a little bit of both. We did ask all the departments to take a look at their departments, and we did suggest particularly training and travel, which we feel we've been extremely fortunate over the past several years to have been able to provide that for all of our employees. Is this an opportunity where we can take a year off and everyone will still be okay? And you'll see some, for instance, the police department, they were not able to cut all of theirs because a lot of theirs is tied to their certifications. Same with public works. There are some trainings that are just required. And so we took a look at all of that. And I think for the most part, they all came back with their own, with the exception of the staffing positions. That was, as budget officer, that was my determination that we would defer those.
I feel I should know this already. This is Dan. So forgive me for asking this, but I'd like to ask my city council, when do they wrestle with this budget, department by department, line by line, if not now?
We don't.
This is unusual times. Normally, we do a review of the budget prior to meeting, and then we go through line item by line item, department by department, and then we make determinations from that point, questioning things within the budget as it's presented. We just don't seem, in this process, it is streamlined, and that's my response to that question.
I have to say that.
Dan, were you on? Excuse me, this is Chair. Dan, were you on the budget committee last year?
Yes, it was.
normally how this process works, but we're not in a normal situation right now.
I stipulate and understand, I've heard this, and I want to say, I understand these are not normal times. I think we can dispense with that. But yet, the main event of the city council, it seems to me, is to go through the budget and to set priorities and to be aware of the money that we're spending as a community and to spend it appropriately. And I'm asking if we're going to streamline this to essentially a show of hands, when do you propose to look at this and to think about it a little bit?
I would assume that all of you have digested what was provided to you and that you probably do that every year. I look at the screen and I know you're all very diligent about doing that. And I understand that you're accustomed to going line item by line item. Line items are basically, that's the staff's job. That's why 3 years ago, we started putting in all the detail sheets so that everyone, all the budget committee members, the city council, the staff, all the citizens have an opportunity to look at those worksheets and say, oh, this department is spending, $500 on office supplies or whatever that is. But the real role of the budget committee and then the city council when it comes to them is to look at the big picture. And Dan made a very good comment about, are we spending our monies responsibly? But your job is to look at that big picture, not go through every single department line item by line item.
That's left up to us to do, every member of the budget committee to do that on our own. And then if we have questions about a specific line item, we bring it forth in this budget meeting.
Any expenditures that are proposed over $50,000 always have to be approved by the council. So that is also a check and balance in our system.
Each year I'll go through and perform a check and balance of the budget to see what percentage of increases, and then I will take a look and see, validate what is the increase and why. And then as we move through the budget process, then we make a determination if the expenditure is warranted. And that's where I believe the city council comes in, is to make those long-term higher priority decisions. For example, the firework discussion compared to a police officer. And that one is a hard one sometimes to digest, I will admit. But those are the types of things that create the controversy or, having to examine it closer, in my opinion.
And I just want to clarify, the positions eliminated were the new, a new hire, and then is that temp position that was a shared position also a new person? Like, are we not having to lay anyone off in this budget?
That is correct. Those were proposed new positions that don't exist.
I think, go ahead, Darcy.
No, go ahead, Jim.
Okay. There are a couple things that the transient room tax, I was asking for an update, a question that I had written down, but we really don't know. We don't know how this is going to impact the rates and how long this is going to extend. We also, the marijuana revenue that's coming in, that we don't know exactly where that's going to stand. So we're making assumptions that we don't have the answers to. And that's what makes this process really difficult.
So this is Darcy. So this is a public meeting so that people in the public can listen to the things that we talk about. They haven't gone through this budget book like we have. I'm happy to bring up a couple of things. Much like Soleil, I often like listening to what other people have to say, and that often sparks other questions or thoughts about what our priorities are. I don't really feel like we need to go through each department budget line by line, because I feel like we've looked at the overall, and if we had big questions about that, that's fine. And I know we've gotten bogged down in that in the past. It was very unproductive. But there are a lot of things that that are more of a direct concern to people in, the contractual services. TRT dollars are huge. The chamber, we didn't have a presentation from them even at City Council, which there was nothing wrong with that. I mean, they had to make a major change, but those are things that we need to be thinking about. Are they headed the direction that we even want them to go with the money we gave them? I read in the cuts, very briefly mentioned that they cut the special grants. Well, sort of like Forktail's Fourth, my question is, should that be lumped into their funds? I mean, we moved it there because they had a process to be fair to distribute those, but did we really mean to give up whether or not we had them based on what the chamber wanted to do with all the money? I wasn't clear on that. And so I just like conversation, and I'm not suggesting we even need a second meeting, but when we started arguing about this, it was just after 6. And if we had just gone through some of these sections at that point, I think we would still end by our usual 8 o'clock or so meeting time, but we'd feel like we fully vetted what we're supposed to do.
We have traditionally in the past gone maybe 1 or 2 nights. So what if we were to delay any decisions until we have a chance for comment from public? If the ones that are listening to this, and perhaps they could call in or they could contact members of the budget committee to basically get feedback from the community about the proposed changes, the proposed amendments, and the proposed decrease in funding in some areas, and at least give people a chance to have a say in this process, and then come back. It wouldn't have to be a large or a long meeting. It could be done again in 2 weeks. Next week, we have a city council meeting, and then the week after, if we could come back. Now, Julie, I'm just making this as just throwing it out to see if there's any discussion or any agreement with this.
Well, certainly not on a 2-week delay. That would mess up our entire process, but.
All right. Well,
typically when we have the budget committee discussion, someone would have already sent in their testimony.
true.
So if you are uncomfortable with approving this tonight, then why don't you all offer up some particular categories within the budget that you want to talk more about, and we can schedule, or we can start tonight, or we can schedule for tomorrow.
I would like to go through the city council's contractual services.
Okay. Shall we just go ahead and start there? Is that okay with you, Chair Miller?
Yes, that works.
Okay, thank you.
This is Tim McLaughlin. It works for me as well.
Anyone else?
Just give me one moment. I have my old budget in one place and my new one in another. Councilwoman Curtis, did you have specific questions, or would you like me to just kind of go through what's on there?
I'd like to just go through it like we normally do, so that everybody has a chance to think about it and make comments, please.
So the contractual services, this is on page 8 of your budget book, but you have to compare it to the new sheet that was sent out today. The McCog link, originally was going to request $30,000. Last year we gave them 20, but I was going to increase that by 10,000 to help pay for one of the bus stops. The bus stop went out in our cut, so we're still providing them with $20,000 for the link, because the city council's always felt that transportation was incredibly important. The Sister City program, actually, Counselor Miller, you might know this better than I was told that they are not even sending a delegation this year. Is that correct?
That's what I've heard, yes.
So we could even take that $2,500 out this year. I don't think we did that. The Youth Think, we typically give them $12,500. They had provided several program ideas, and so I was hoping to increase that to pay for one whole program for them, but we reduced that back down. The Forktail Displays had asked that theirs be lumped together. Originally was at $40,000, and we cut that in half. The Wall Dogs event sponsorship, we did not take that out because they are still planning to do the 20, Mayor, you can correct me if I'm wrong, 21-22 budget, but they needed the current year for that sponsorship. We reduced the beautification and arts by $10,000, so they would each get $10,000 for each of those instead of 15. And there's $11,500 in there that was a request from Home at Last. It actually could have also been cut if we needed to. I think I missed that one in my cuts.
So Julie, you said that the wall dog would remain funded?
Yes, that was a sponsorship for one of the murals.
Okay. I'm on board with all of those.
Well, I don't think Councillor Long Curtis and Councillor Runyon were in support of the fireworks, so maybe that's a discussion that you'd like to have.
Well, I think Soleil makes
Everybody.
I think Soleil makes a good point that by July, we don't know what's going to happen, whether or not, you know, it does attract a large group of people that will come into the community. I don't know, that one we may need to look at that. That's a $20,000 expenditure, right?
It is proposed at 20,000 now, it was 40.
Let's see.
This is Linda,
Councilman,
and everybody knows my position on the fireworks.
which is?
No, say what it is, please.
No, I believe that's the birthday of our country, and I believe it should be celebrated. And I've lived in a lot of communities across this country, and they all celebrate the 4th of July, Independence Day. And I come back to my hometown and there's nothing for several years. And I believe it needs to be celebrated.
Yeah.
What portion of the fireworks does $20,000 represent? So in other words, we're proposing to give money to a fireworks program. Do you know what the total for that is?
I do not know if they will reduce that program this year or not. In the past, it's been $50,000, and we used to give them 25. So the city paid half and they fundraised for the remaining.
Correct. We write a check directly to the fireworks display. We don't send it to them. So
Correct.
we're paying for the firework portion, correct, Julie?
Yes, that is correct.
This is Rich.
May I say, I'm sorry, there's a chat that I didn't see from Beatrice. She says she's comfortable with the way the meeting is moving. She's not sure what's happening with her computer.
Okay.
And if you're waving at the chair, she can't see you, so I'll shout out to her who's waving. Rich is waving, Linda.
Okay, Rich?
I'd just like to clarify that Rod and Darcy did not say they were opposed to the fireworks.
Rich, you need to
Yes.
mute your computer. All right, and then try that again.
Now he's muted on his phone.
Oh,
Rich, no one can hear you.
shoot.
Maybe turn your computer back on and turn your phone off. There you are.
All right.
So let me chime in on this firework thing. I think this is another one of those topics that's going to alter over time that the city council is going to have a discussion with as we move closer to July.
Exactly.
But they need to have sufficient time if we choose not to fund that amount. That would be terrible at the last minute to pull that fund.
Can you hear me? This is Rod.
Yes.
Okay. Rich was trying to say what I had my hand up about a while ago. We weren't, Darcy and I, our comment was not against having fireworks. I'm for the fireworks. The comment was about agreeing with Darcy that it should be more definitive in the budget, not just giving Forktail's displays a lump sum of money without direction. I think if it's 20, if it's 10 for fireworks or 15 or whatever it is, it should be laid out as to that's what it is. But I also agree with Tanner that it's going to change between now and the weekend of the 4th of July.
Thank you, and I appreciate those comments. I do know that from my email with Matt Harrigus that the 20,000 I did leave in the budget, their intention was to use fully for fireworks, and I believe they are at a point where they must sign the contract with them. So I would need to let them know right away if the budget committee was uncomfortable funding that.
Yeah.
And I think this is the same in years past, that money goes right to the fireworks people. It doesn't go
to the committee.
To the committee. So our money is being used solely for fireworks.
Correct.
I agree. Let's move on.
But Councilor Long Curtis did make a very good point that it needed to be definitive, and I apologize for that. So I will also let them know that if they come to me next year for funds, that it will need to be separated, and we'll ask them to provide their work plan, just like we do the Chamber of Commerce.
A work plan, and also as the project completes itself, then some type of follow-up evaluation and expenditure sheet, something like that, so we know it's justified.
Okay.
And we've done that in the past as well. We required that after the event.
Yes.
So I would highly encourage that again.
Thank you.
This is Darcy. So part of this is that there's a long history of whether or not we use tax dollars to fund fireworks. And it's not that I'm personally opposed to fireworks. It's that in these very difficult times when our budgets are being cut, and the initial argument, well, actually the initial way we got into this was they started it and they ran short, and so city council had to save them, which city council did not want to do. And then it suddenly became that we were putting money into the budget every year. But a lot of citizens have argued to me that it's a lot of money to blow up in 10 minutes. And I do agree that we have things we could use that money for. And this year, I would be willing to put it all toward the murals, because I'm very concerned that we cannot wait another year to fix and save those murals. I mean, it was too late 2-3 years ago. So I would feel much better if we put the $20,000 toward preserving the murals, which are going to be here for many, many, many years, versus spending that tax money on fireworks right now. I'm not saying that we as a community shouldn't participate and fundraise for that. I'm just saying that as a city council, I feel like there are better returns on our investment. And I still think that if Fort Dallas Forth wants to come to us, we somehow need to work them in prior to the budget so that they know whether or not we're going to do it, but that we're not deciding and we're not pressured a month before they have to make their commitments, because that's not fair to anyone.
As I understand it, they need to make the commitment relatively soon.
Even worse. So my proposal.
Any other comments?
I was just going to say, my proposal is that we leave the same amount for Fort Dallas Fourth, but we dedicate it all to restoration of existing murals.
Okay, let's go back to, do we have to have another meeting?
I think that would depend on the budget committee and what other questions they have for us this evening, if they feel satisfied at the end of the evening, whether they want to have another meeting or not.
This is Soleil. Councillor Long Curtis, is that a formal motion to amend the budget?
Well, if that's what we need at this point, then yes, that's a formal motion.
Okay, is there a second?
I'd second that. This is Soleil Kabakov.
Oh, okay, so we have a motion to the $20,000 that would go to the Forktail Fourth displays would be specifically for mural restoration, and it's been seconded. Is there any other discussion?
Yeah, I think this is not exactly the prime opportunity to change the alteration this close to an event. I think that's something that could be duly noted for next year so that there is no misconceptions or miscommunication as to what our expectations are.
Any other discussion?
This is Rod. I agree with what Tanner said.
This is Tim. I agree with Tanner's comments.
This is
okay, so let's
Soleil.
take a roll call vote.
I just want to point out that the line item says in parentheses, fireworks and murals.
Right,
For
because
them to spend it all on fireworks already doesn't quite fit this line item that we're suggesting.
Because that was prepared prior to our having to make all the cuts.
Okay, so can we take a roll call vote?
Yes.
Thank you, Isetta.
Linda Miller,
No.
Darcy Long Curtis,
Yes.
Tim McLaughlin,
No.
Rod Runyon,
No.
Dan Richardson,
Yes.
Tanner Elliott,
No.
Beatrice,
No.
so that was.
I think you missed Soleil.
Yeah, I
Did
vote.
miss Soleil? I'm sorry.
I vote
Soleil?
yes. That's okay. I vote yes.
Okay, so we had 3 in favor and 5 against.
Okay, did not pass. Motion did not pass. Okay, any other discussion regarding the budget and before taking a vote about another meeting?
Would you like to continue this meeting with additional questions so everyone has an opportunity to express whatever concerns they may have?
I would like to. This is Dan. I have a question I'd like to pose to the other committee members, and that is there any appetite for discussion in looking through the line items to try and find the $17,000 and change to move along the police fire.
And please keep in mind that part of the cost that for that officer that we also took out was about $45,000 for the vehicle, because if we add one more officer, then we're short on vehicles. So the total amount you're looking for is about $148,000.
Anyone else have discussion about the police officer being nixed?
This is Rod. I think we got our answer earlier from Mr. Carrico and Julie's discussions with the chief. And if the police department, which knows their own abilities, is willing to defer it, then I'm willing to go along with those decisions.
This is Tim McLaughlin. I'm in agreement with that.
This is Tanner. I agree with that as well.
Darcy?
Yeah, we haven't gone through enough for me to be comfortable about trying to figure out where we would find that kind of money. So, no.
Soleil?
Yeah, I agree with the consensus there that that's a lot to find at this point, and trust the leadership of the department that they're making a good decision for the city.
Beatrice?
I'm also going with the consensus that the police department, they're okay with doing that, so we're okay with that.
And I agree. Any other discussion?
Did any of the budget committee members have some other departments or budgets that they'd like to talk about tonight?
Rich, you're unmuted.
Mayor, do you have any comments to make?
Participants in the meeting. This meeting is being recorded. You are muted. You can mute or unmute yourself by pressing *6.
Rich, can you hear us?
Yeah.
Oh, Chair Miller asked if you had any comments.
The only thing I'd like to say is that if you don't have any confidence in Forktail's displays to do the fireworks, I'm not sure if you have any confidence in them to do the murals either.
I think we already went through that, Rich.
Yeah.
What we're looking
Any
for
other
is.
discussion?
Oh,
Go ahead, Tim.
I was just going to say we're closing those down and moving on and looking at any other departments or any other questions or topics that we need to discuss. And I think those were important topics that we needed to have a review and a little discussion on. So. Tim,
Anyone else?
Oh.
Gotcha, Tim.
All right.
Anyone else? Okay, so do we need another meeting?
You know,
I don't think so.
I propose that, but I think that we've covered the things that I think wanted to be discussed. I think where people had concerns. So I'm not wanting to move ahead on another meeting unless someone else. I'll be back if you want.
Soleil?
I do not have specific questions. No.
Darcy?
I do not want another meeting, but I do want to make sure that we really seek out intentionally public feedback and allow time for that at our city council meeting where we will be discussing whether or not we approve this budget.
And I will agree with that. And I think it's good and healthy that we have this discussion.
This is Rod, I agree with that as well, that I think our city council meetings, once we're back in front of people, will be much lengthier.
This is Beatrice, and I agree with Darcy. I don't think we need another meeting at this point, but definitely having those discussions at the city council meeting with the public would be great.
Chair concurs.
Thank you, Ms.
Okay.
Dan Tanner.
He's shaking his head, yes.
Yep, I'm good. I agree with the consensus.
All right.
Dan?
I think you're going to need several more meetings, but if you want to do it at city council, I'm not going to kick up a fuss about that.
Well, once the budget committee approves the budget, it always goes to city council. And there's discussion at that time also. So do I have an approval of the budget? Let's take a roll call vote.
Motion.
Do we need a motion first?
Yes.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the budget?
This is Rod, I'll make a motion to approve the budget, including the adjustments and conversations that we have had in the last 15, 20 minutes. I know that you've been making copious notes, so I would make a motion to approve the budget as we've discussed.
Is there a second?
Yes, I'll second. This is Tim McLaughlin.
Okay, any discussion?
I have
I
a
just
point.
got this Rod, I make the discussion would be for me is that I believe our city council meetings will be lengthier this year regarding going through the budget. And I hope that helps with Darcy's questions there. But I really do think we're going to spend more time than the council has in the past.
Point of clarification. I know what the motion made was, but does the budget committee approve the budget or does the budget committee move the proposed budget to the city council?
That's what they do.
Budget committee approves the budget and then it gets forwarded to the city council who has to adopt the budget.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
But the city council can make changes to that budget and adjustments, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
There you
Under
go.
my understanding, yes.
Absolutely.
Okay, so any other discussion about the motion? So let's take, if there isn't, let's take a roll call vote.
Linda Miller,
Yes, I approve it.
Darcy, Long
No.
Curtis, Tim McLaughlin,
Yes, I approve.
Rod Runyon,
Approve.
Dan Richardson,
Yes.
Tanner Elliott,
Yes.
Beatrice,
Yes, I approve.
and Soleil.
No.
So that was 2 opposed, 6 in favor.
Okay, the budget committee has approved the budget as presented and discussed. Any other comments before we close this meeting?
This is Soleil Kabakov, and while I understand the extenuating circumstances, I also sit on 2 other boards, and we have very lengthy, meaningful discussions and full business, even under these circumstances. So I feel I wanted to explain my no vote. It wasn't that I necessarily wouldn't approve the budget. I just feel like we didn't have the rigorous discussion to give me a comfort level with a yes vote. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Well, I'd like to say that you're lucky if your meetings have gone better than this has, because I've been at other meetings in this format, and I've had to leave the meeting because I couldn't be heard.
I'd like to say something along those lines, Ms. Rod. We need to, a couple of meetings we've had now, each time we're having trouble hearing our mayor, and we need to help him so that he is fully involved in these discussions. He has a lot of experience, and it just seems like we're not able to involve him to the extent needed.
I will commit to helping Mayor. I can go by and look into the problems and fix them. This is Tim McLaughlin.
Well, it's not your responsibility. That's nice.
No, but
The city needs to do something to help out. Okay.
Okay. Any other comments? Hearing none, I adjourn this meeting.
thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Thanks, everybody.